Hello, it's Katie. I'm back with another Studio Ghibli video. So I've already sketched out 3 scenes using a light blue pencil on cold pressed watercolour paper. I'm using my Winsor Newton watercolour set, and I'll be using these Chinese calligraphy and standard synthetic brushes as well, just to see which I prefer. And once we've set up, we're ready to start. So the first scene I'm painting is an early scene in the film, so it's just the house and area that she grew up in. The key aspects to this style is having really soft, layered colours and sketchy lines. So with the watercolours, you need to take some time, so you need to put down very thin washes of colour and then let each one dry completely before you put down the next one. Honestly, I wasn't too patient with this, so quite a lot of my colours did bleed into each other, but I didn't really mind it as long as I captured the general mood and just the details of the scene. So I do find painting therapeutic because these past few weeks have struggled more with my mood. Motivation has been really low. So here's just a trick that I use to kind of kick myself into action. So instead of thinking about the main goal, I just break it down into the smallest task. So instead of thinking I have 3 paintings to do, which would feel quite daunting when you're not mentally up for it, I would just think of the simplest task instead. So in this case, I just need to tape some paper, and that's it. And then when it got to the sketch, instead of worrying about would it look good, is it going to turn out right, just start with a line. So I just started with just a line for the mountain. So the idea is just to get the ball rolling, really. So once you start, the momentum should pick up. Personally, I find it a lot easier to get things going this way, but of course it's important to just look after yourself in general. So I've just been taking more walks, spending more time in prayer, just things like that has helped as well, and I am feeling a lot better now, which is good. Okay, so back to more kind of technical conversations. So as you go along, you would see how the blue pencil lines somewhat just disappear under the paint. And that's really amazing because I didn't know about this until quite recently. A viewer recommended this, and thank you, you know who you are. But with a standard pencil, the grey lines always poke through and it just never looks great. And when you rub out the lines, you kind of rub out the colour as well. So using a blue pencil or red pencil is a really good trick to kind of avoid this. So moving on to the lines, I decided to use drawing ink in different concentrations. So I kind of noticed how some of the lines were quite light and then some of the lines were a bit darker in tone. So I felt like this would be most suitable. I do believe that in the originals they used charcoal for it, which makes sense because the lines they're very textured in the originals. I really couldn't see how I could pull that off, so I'm just using standard brush and ink because it looks alright. I don't get the texture, but it's still quite neat and it still looks pretty cute as well. So as I got towards the end of the painting, it was really interesting to see how the lines really brought the piece together, because the contrast in the painting is so low, you really don't notice much of the form or the details, and so you start adding in the lines. And what I really love about Studio Ghibli is that it's always about little details. So how they've got just like little squiggles and a few lines and a blob, but that's like a tree in the background. And I just find little things like that just really, really interesting because it gives so much more context to the film. So when I'm deciding what to draw, I'm naturally just drawn to landscapes and just pretty little scenes in general. I do want to practice characters and expressions more, so for the second piece I decided to draw the scene where she was just kind of playing under the cherry blossoms, and it was such an uplifting and just happy scene in the film. So aside from the initial sketch, there was quite a few things that was a bit challenging about the scene. So when it came to her garments, I couldn't understand how they achieved that flat colour using watercolours unless they used something else. But I decided to add a bit of white gouache to the watercolours just to make it more opaque and to make it very even and matte as well. I did forget that gouache dries a lot darker, so I ended up repainting this part off camera just to make it a lot lighter. And that's a really great thing about using gouache, in that you can easily just cover up or redo any mistakes or correct any colours as you go along. Watercolours and ink not so much, which is why I do find it quite intimidating to use still. Moving on to the last piece now. For the really pale shades in the background, I just used some really diluted washes of colours, and it actually took me a while to realise that you don't need to add white to make a pale shade. All you need is just a lot of water to really dilute it down, and that kind of gives a really pale glass-like effect, which worked really well here. And in general, I've been really enjoying these Ghibli scene studies. I think so far I've done a few from Spirited Away, Kiki's Delivery Service, and Ponyo, and it's just been really educational, just studying the colours and composition and the details as well. I mean, Studio Ghibli is another class, so there's just so much to learn from them. So here we have the finished results. Do let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you have any questions or any tips, do feel free to just shout them out as well. Also, if you enjoyed this video, you can let me know by giving this a thumbs up. And if you're new here, you can support me in my work by subscribing to my channel down below as well. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.